First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for kicking my brother out when he came to see his wife? I, female 26, have 2 sisters and 1 brother. He's 7 years older. I don't have a good relationship with him because of what he did to our younger sister. My younger sister left when she was 18 and I haven't seen her ever since. However, I have a good relationship with his wife. She's a very nice and generous young lady. I don't get involved in her issues with my brother, and I don't judge her for being with him, although he has issues. The two have their share of arguments. His wife had issues and miscarried twice before. She got pregnant again and made it to her 2nd trimester. My brother was happy and looked at ease and calmer than usual. This was the family's first baby boy, as my older sister has 1 daughter. Unfortunately, his wife miscarried on her 5th month. It was devastating for her, but my brother argued with her for days and told the family it was her fault for working, which is wrong. She came to my house last Tuesday with her bags, asking if she could stay for a few days because she got into an argument with my brother. She was a mess, she lost weight, she was crying and was too tired to do anything. I cooked for her, and I made arrangement with a therapist to help her. She doesn't reply to my brother's calls and texts, and she says she doesn't want to see him for now for her health. She repeatedly asked me to respect her wish and not pressure her to see him, but I'd never do that. He came to my house wanting to see her. I told him I'm no contact with him, so he has no right to come inside. He said he was there for his wife. I told him she didn't want to talk to him. He lashed out, telling me to mind my business and not get involved. I told him she said that, and he said I lied. He demanded I let him come in, but I refused. We started arguing and his voice was getting loud because he was yelling at me and calling me names. I got so mad. I told him to leave or I'll call the police. He left. Then when my mom heard, she berated me along with my sister and the rest of the family, saying it's not my business to get involved between my brother and his wife, much less try to drive a wedge between them. They said I had no right to stop him from seeing his wife, and that I was in my sister-in-law's ear bad-mouthing my brother out of hate and pettiness. I told them I'm just trying to help out and support my sister-in-law, but they said that I'm being harsh on my brother and punishing him for years because of something my younger sister did. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your sister-in-law said she didn't want to talk to him. You respected her wishes. He sounds like an absolute a-hole, and you should absolutely call the police if he comes back. The rest of your family sounds like a-holes too, and you should be within your rights to go low or no contact. I completely agree. I feel like sister-in-law went to OP because she knew her wishes would be respected. What did he do to your sister? Your family needs to get their noses out of it, and your brother needs to learn not to be a massive a-hole and respect your sister-in-law's boundaries. My younger sister left when she was 19. He always tried to control her life. She got pregnant 2 years before and he treated her poorly. He demanded she get a termination. Even drove her to the clinic himself to get her to fix her mistake. No one helped. I got into an argument with him after she left home, and I cut contact with him. I don't know where my sister is now. She only reached out once, but my brother lied to her and told her we all disowned her, and we didn't even know until months later. I miss her so much, and I want to tell her I'm sorry. My family didn't like that I cut contact with my brother. They said I can't punish my brother for something my sister did. Not the a-hole. No offense, but your brother is an egomaniac who should not be having kids, let alone be married. He made it your business when he drove her away to seek support. You were not interfering with their marriage. She came to you. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister she needs to contain her kids or leave our home? I, 26 female, live with my partner, 27 male. His grandmother, 82 female, gifted him the house, and the 3 of us live together. She's blind, and we help her out, though she's fairly self-sufficient still. My sister has 2 children, 8 and 5. Her husband suffers from early onset dementia and was moved into a care facility shortly before the first lockdown happened in my country. While fortunately we do have universal health care, still the combination of the cost of the care facility and not having a second wage made my sister unable to stay in their old home. I talked with my boyfriend, and as the house is quite large, we said she could temporarily stay with us, especially as it's been hell trying to find new accommodation now. However, we do feel she's starting to outstay her welcome. The main issue is, she's letting the kids run loose everywhere. You have to understand that this house is pretty big. We're letting them stay downstairs. They have a bedroom, a study, a small living room/kitchenette, a toilet, and a shower. It's essentially a small, fully functional apartment. The floor above it has a bigger kitchen/living room/dining room, where they're also sometimes welcome for common meals. Upstairs is me and boyfriend's room, boyfriend's grandma's room, another bathroom, and a study. Work-wise, my boyfriend currently works fully remotely, and I work part-time and part-time study, also all remotely. We both need room/space. When we are both in Zoom calls, generally one of us takes the upstairs study and one the living room on the middle floor. Grandma will often also be there. She's quite a low-maintenance person, and it's perfectly possibly okay to work while she's listening to audiobooks on headphones or she's cooking. Yes, she still does. Now, I have told my sister that they need to stay downstairs while we are working. I think they have plenty of space. Yet, the kids keep coming upstairs for whatever reason regularly while one of us is working. They also keep toys lying around, and Grandma's already stepped on them a few times, hurting herself. My sister will also do things like use things from our fridge, which would be okay, but she doesn't restock. I found out that one day when I was out shopping, one of the kids had been in our bedroom, as some of my drawers had been rummaged through. My partner was also really not happy that the kids had been in our room unsupervised. To me, this was the last straw. I feel like we have been super hospitable, but she's taken over the whole house, not keeping the kids under control when we are working, and disrespecting our hospitality. I told her this is the last warning, and that if she keeps doing this, we will ask her to leave. She was in tears, saying I was mean, that my nephew and niece are just being kids, that she can't move now. But I'm tired of it. I feel like a stranger in our home. Am I the a-hole for setting this ultimatum? Now for the top comments. She was in tears, saying I was mean, that my nephew and niece are just being kids, that she can't move now. 1. You're not mean for standing your ground. You and your boyfriend/his grandma are being more than accommodating. 2. Just being kids is the worst excuse for letting your kids do whatever they want. Your sister needs to step up and be a parent. 3. She sure can move now, and she will, if she doesn't heed your final warning. Not an a-hole. Agreed. Let me add on and say that OP is a saint for what they are doing. And their sister really needs to show some appreciation when in fact she's doing the opposite. Not an a-hole. Not an a-hole. Your sister is allowing her children to endanger the safety and health of an 82-year-old woman who is the reason you and your partner had the ability to generously offer her a place to stay. That alone is reason enough to kick her out. If my daughter could learn at 3 years old not to leave toys laying around when we visited a blind friend down the street, kids who are 5 and 8 can learn that common decency as well. The problem is that your sister refuses to use the word no with them, and it's going to make her homeless. Not an a-hole. I was thinking the same thing about the grandmother. It's one thing if they get a little loud, but putting the grandmother at risk for a serious injury is too much. My sons are all grown now, but when they were younger and we were in someone else's home, acting like out-of-control brats was a huge nope. Acting that way anywhere was a big nope. I don't know what I would have done had they endangered someone's health and well-being. If the sister can't get her kids to behave, at an age they are perfectly capable of knowing right from wrong, it's time for them to get their own place. Not an a-hole. You are a saint for letting her stay as long as she has, I'm assuming rent-free, and she can't follow your short list of demands? I don't think it's reasonable to ask her to not invade your personal spaces, stay in their living area during your work time, not raid your fridge unless she contributes to what goes into it. She is taking advantage of you and your kindness. Don't let her push you around. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not telling my wife that I had agreed to be a guardian before we even met? I've always said I didn't want kids of my own. However, I became very close with my niece and nephew. I babysat them and they've spent weekends with me. When they were little, my brother and sister-in-law asked me to be their guardian should anything happen to them. I agreed because they are truly the only kids I could see myself raising. Niece is now 11 years old and nephew is 10 years old. I got married 3 years ago and my wife felt the same as me about not having kids. She's very good to my niece and nephew. However, I never told her about what I agreed to with my brother and sister-in-law. Last year, my sister-in-law passed quite unexpectedly. It's been very hard on my brother, and my wife and I have been helping him out a lot. Last week, my brother sat us down and said he was updating his own will. He got a sizable life insurance policy from sister-in-law's death and has put most of it into trusts for the kids. He wanted us to be in charge of the trusts in the event of his passing. We agreed. Then, my brother mentioned adding my wife as guardian in the will, as we never did that. My wife was confused, and I told her that before we even met, I had agreed to be the kids' guardian. She got all freaked out and started saying we agreed on no kids, this wasn't no kids, etc. This started upsetting my brother, as he worried his kids wouldn't have anyone to raise them. We're literally the only options. I told my brother that I'd talk to my wife about it. She's pretty pissed that I never told her this before. I told her it shouldn't matter. Would she really let these kids be orphaned if their dad died? I said my brother dying probably isn't going to happen before they're 18. She pointed out we didn't think sister-in-law would either. She basically relented and said she'd become guardian, but I'd be doing all of the work with them. I called her selfish for viewing my niece and nephew as a burden. Now we're barely talking. My friend has told me that I'm being an A, and I can't be surprised at my wife's reaction. Upon further reflection, I wonder if he's right. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. You tried to strong-arm her to something she never agreed on. Here's the proper way during the dating process. OP, I do not want to have children. Future wife, great, me neither. We are a match. OP, I have this deal with my brother though. Future wife, what kind of deal? OP proceeds to explain the deal. Then, your future wife could have made an informed decision whether she stays with you. Instead, now the problem snowballed to a much bigger problem. What else is he withholding from me? Exactly. Wife's position, no kids, ever. Husband's position, two very specific kids at a random point in time. No kids. OP, why would your wife ever assume that you would take these kids in with the agreement your marriage is based on as no kids? You assume that, just because you had these values, that your wife would help raise these kids. But you hid these values from your wife and never even allowed her to express that she does not share these values. You failed to consider your wife's feelings on the matter. You changed the terms of your marriage that you entered into deceitfully. And you're calling her selfish? You're the a-hole. Your wife is right. This should have come up and is a deal breaker. You can decide this for yourself, but you cannot make this decision for her. Your argument is weak at best. You're the a-hole. You knew how she felt about kids. And to say it shouldn't have mattered? Really? Of course it matters to some people. I'm not saying you shouldn't have agreed to be guardian, but your wife should have had all the information. So that if she married you and you guys end up with these kids, it was a choice she knowingly made. Or maybe she wouldn't have married you if she'd known, and that should have been her choice to make. You owe her an apology, both for not telling her and for how you called her selfish and tried to play off like this was no big deal. The last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not making dinner for my husband after he was rude to our son? My son, 13, has recently got into cooking and he's amazing at it. Usually when he was experimenting or making food for just himself, he washed up. He started helping me out with meals, and 2 times a week now, he cooks dinner by himself. My husband has been insisting he wash his own dishes up, but I usually just wind up doing them. I don't particularly like feeling like I'm doing nothing. 4 nights ago, he sat me down and said I need to stop doing our son's chore. He made the mess, so he cleans it. He shouldn't be getting away with it. I replied that while it was true for small, single-person meals, it doesn't work the same for family meals. He got huffy about it, at which point I said, why does he have to wash up but I don't? At which point he got kinda quiet. He tried excusing his behavior, but each time there was a flaw, and he basically huffed off. He came back a couple hours later and said something along the lines of, we have to make him realize how hard life can be. At which point I basically told him to buzz off. Here's where I may be the a-hole. I implemented a new rule. You have to somehow be a part of dinner in order to eat it. So for example, my son makes dinner and I wash the dishes. Therefore we both get to eat it. My husband was angered by this rule. and I replied by telling him to put his rubber gloves on and get cleaning. So far, my son and I have had 3 amazing meals, and my hub has left the house to go eat elsewhere. Our funds are separate, so it doesn't affect me. My son thinks it's pretty cool. He's always much preferred me over his father, and this bonding time is really important to him. But family think I'm being way too harsh, agreeing that he should do more chores. I disagree, but no one seems to be on my side, so I come to you, dear Reddit. Am I the a-hole? He's always much preferred me over his father. You don't say. That's because his father is an a-hole. The goal of parenting is to raise a child into a functioning adult member of society. The goal is not treat children like slave labor so they learn how goddamn hard life is. There's a lot of time to learn how hard life is. He needs people to model good behavior, stand up for him, and teach him basics of how to care for himself, his belongings, and his home when he leaves. You are doing that. You had his back when his dad was being an a-hole to him. You stood for fairness, instead of letting someone come in and treat your son poorly, specifically because he's a child. You're not an a-hole, but your husband absolutely is. What gets me is that it actually is a thing that you should make your children do chores to teach them how the world works. But generally, cooking for the whole family is one of those chores, and it surely isn't how the world works for someone to have to clean the dishes for a group meal. The dude's got something in his head, but I don't know if it's a brain or not, honestly. Not an a-hole. Your husband needs to know how hard life can be. Ah, using his words against him. I like it. Sounds like y'all have way bigger problems than dishes after a meal. Might want to get to the bottom of it and take it to relationship advice. Yeah, I'm tempted to call this an everyone sucks here. Opie's whole attitude just makes this whole thing seem like a broken home waiting to happen. I feel bad for the kid having to see his parents go at it like this. And that's the end of this video, folks. As always, leave a comment and hit like and subscribe. And if you want more of this content, turn your notification on to get updated on the latest videos. And I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe.